Item 10.2, council member reports or comments. I'll start from my right. Any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've been troubled about things going on in our community over the past several weeks, and I see it getting worse, not better. And I'm really troubled to continue to read that Mr. Sean Gordon, the self-anointed Rancho Santa Margarita government watchdog, continues to tell residents of our great city, the Rancho Santa Margarita City Council members, that we all receive pensions when we leave here. As you'll recall, listening to our speaker tonight, I have been served once again with a notice of an intent to recall me from office. And what's troubling is that in that notice, there is a 200-word statement of the grounds for recall. And those grounds for recall are the words that will eventually be published on a petition that Mr. Gordon and each of those individuals that signed this notice, that they will be telling the residents of this city, this is why we need to remove Mr. Beal from office. And those reasons are simply false. And I want to address on the record some of those falsehoods. And the reason for that is I am deeply concerned that Mr. Gordon and those individuals that have signed this, his few supporters, they are intentionally providing false information to the residents of Rancho Santa Margarita. And I want to clear that up once and for all for the benefit of our residents on the record. Once again, they have stated that I, Tony Beal, supports high-density development sweetheart deals in Dove Canyon for his buddies. I have addressed this in writing on the record, and it's patently false. And I would direct everyone in the community, especially those individuals that have signed this statement, to take that into consideration before you start circulating to your fellow residents false information. I've never made such a statement that I support high-density development, sweetheart deals in Dove Canyon for my buddies. My statement speaks for itself. It's in writing. They have suggested that I have a conflict of interest because I work in a law firm, and they say that my law firm has represented or represents the owners of the property. That's false. We don't represent the William Lyon Company nor Raintree Investment Corporation. I have no buddies that are involved in the ownership. I'm not beholden to anyone. And so any person in this city who claims that that statement in this notice of intention is true is lying to the residents of Rancho Santa Margarita. I want to address one other claim. They claim that I have voted to spike my city pension. So for the record, I'm going to address these questions. I've got some questions that I got for our city manager. Are Rancho Santa Margarita City Council members entitled to receive a pension when they retire, when their service to this community is over?
No, the council members are not receiving pensions. They are excluded from membership in the CalPERS retirement system.
We've had other council members that have served and have retired, left the council. Are any of them receiving pensions today for their service in Rancho Santa Margarita?
To my knowledge, no council member ever is from being a council member for Rancho Santa Margarita is receiving a pension. I know that a couple of council members, because they've worked for other governmental agencies, may get a pension resulting from those agencies, but there is no one getting a pension from Rancho Santa Margarita being a council member.
Would any of the current members of the Rancho Santa Margarita City Council today be entitled to receive a guaranteed monthly pension for the rest of their lives as a result of their service here in Rancho Santa Margarita?
No, there is no government pension provided to our council members.
So what we have in reality, as I have stated multiple times on the record, trying to correct the misinformation that's being put out there. Isn't it true that council members, we have access only to a 457 plan, which is similar to a 401k plan that our residents that work in the private sector are probably familiar with? Isn't that true? And could you explain on the record so people understand what the truth is?
So cities are required to provide for all their employees, which for these purposes, council members considered an employee, either a Social Security account or have a 457. And shortly after incorporation, the council at that time opted for the 457 plan, which, as you mentioned, is similar to a 401k that people in the private sector are familiar with. So for council members, we are required to provide the equivalent of what we would provide into Social Security, which is, I want to say it's something a little over 12% of the monthly stipend. So the entire annual amount that is provided for each council member into that contribution, that retirement contribution account, is $690.
So there's no city pension.
It's not a pension. It's a retirement contribution plan like a 401k.
Okay. So I have one final.
We're required by law to do.
So we have no pension. I have one final question. I've never voted to spike my city pension, have I?
The council has not, since there is no pension, there could not have been a vote to spike. I will say that it was in 2006 when the city first became a CalPERS agency. The council did vote to exclude council members from receiving a pension through the CalPERS system. So that's the only vote that I'm aware of, and I know
Was I on the city council at that time?
Yeah, I think.
How did I vote?
You voted for the exclusion of the council members, and I believe Mayor Holloway was also on the council at the time and voted for the exclusion of council members.
So not only did I not vote to spike my pension, I voted to make sure that no council member ever got a pension. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So I hope that helps clear up the confusion that seems to be out there in the community. I don't think it's going to matter much to Mr. Gordon or his supporters, because I think they're bound and determined to provide false information to our residents. And to me, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I find that unethical, unprofessional, and simply wrong. And I just want to take a moment to say, I've lived here with my family now for over 30 years. And as our speaker, Mr. Lundberg, mentioned in his comments today, I mean, it's a great community, a great place to raise a family, to run a business. And I have never, in all these years, seen anything like what's going on in our community now. This is wrong. This is out of hand. And Mr. Gordon and those that have signed this notice to commence a recall against me are sowing the seeds of dissension and division in this community. Recalls are very divisive, and they can tear a city apart. It can take years for a city to heal. A recall is designed to remove someone for an act of malfeasance. There's no claim of that. They're talking about votes that took place 12 years ago. I've been elected twice since then. I've gotten more votes than anyone in the history of the city. It's their right to do it, but I'm urging them to rethink what they're doing, because it could tear up the fabric of this city for a long, long time. And I just don't want to see that happen. Our community deserves better. And I would urge Mr. Gordon and each of the individuals that have signed this, read the words that you're putting out to your neighbors and see if you really, truly stand behind that. Our residents deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Figueroa.
You know, I've lived here for 27 years, and, you know, I know for a fact that Councilman Beal, this place would not be the wonderful place it is without your participation, your contributions to the city. And, I'm sad this is happening. I think about the Superior Courthouse fight that we had. This was before cityhood. Where, I don't know if a lot of people know, but there was going to be a Superior Courthouse in the middle of the business center here in Rancho Santa Margarita. And a jail. Well, and we found out that they were going to be trying murder trials here. We found that out. They were actually changing the designation from a municipal courthouse to a Superior Courthouse. And when we started the group to fight it, because as a parent, I was very, very concerned. Obviously, I would just move to the community, and I didn't want to live next to a courthouse. You took your time, and you really led us the way on all the legal aspects of fighting this. And we were fighting the County of Orange, which is no small feat at all, obviously. So, but we prevailed, and that's why there's not a Superior Courthouse here in Rancho Santa Margarita. And I can't even imagine what the city would be like if we did have a courthouse here. So, and of course, Measure Z after cityhood. Obviously fighting the rezoning of that property to commercial, which you were a very instrumental part of. So, anyhow, thank you for your contributions to our city. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble, anything?
Most folks don't know that I was one of the original founders of the city. So in 1995, before we were a city, I worked with a group that met Councilmember Beal and Councilmember Figueroa through their efforts to preserve an area of the city from a big zone change. So we were working for cityhood. Ann and Tony were working to prevent a zone change. And I met a large group of people, both working for cityhood. Some of you are here. And in Ann and Tony's neighborhood, they were fighting a courthouse that was going to come. And everyone banded together to work toward that. I felt so good about creating a city for 50,000 people that would be just the right size where we could work together and make it go from a great place to live to an idyllic place to live. So much so 2020 came out here and called us Shangri-La back in the day. And Barbara Walters did a whole show on it. And so I share some of the somber feelings that some of us have when I see or hear about what's going on with neighbors pitted against neighbors, because we actually all are neighbors, as if there were two sides. The courthouse, the rezoning of the Nissan property, and now the Dove Canyon Center. That's not our first go-around at zone changes. And to my lengthy knowledge of being in a leadership role in this city, this council generally supports the master plan. So I'm not quite sure what all the anger and the angst is. It hurts my heart, not my feelings, my heart. Because when I go home, I love where I live. And my hope and expectation is that while I'm serving the community, that everyone else that lives here gets to have that same joy in their heart, that you get to go home and you get to love where you live. Now, I'm just one of 5. I am one of 5 laboring oars for this. And the city council and the city moves in the fine direction it does because of the work of my colleagues. And so these aren't strangers to me, my colleagues, but they're also not my best friends. We don't hang out. We don't go to each other's houses. We're not friends in that way. We're work colleagues. I have tremendous respect for all of my work colleagues. I've known them for a long time, and we don't always agree, but their heart is always thinking about what's best for Rancho. And on February 27th of 1995, when I started my very first day of starting to build cityhood for this community, it never occurred to me in 1 million years that I would see, hear, or read some of the vulgar and repugnant things that I see and hear online. I'm so sad for all of us. And I know that we are all better than that. And I certainly know that you, the public, our staff, and our leadership deserves better than this. We as a people are much better than this. And so I'm very sorry, Councilmember Beal. Although we're like an old married couple. I guess we don't always agree at everything, but I have tremendous respect. I've always only ever known you to come from a place of honor and honesty. I find this entire thing both tormenting to my Dove Canyon family, the residents who I consider my family, and I think it's tormenting to the city. I'm very sad about all of this. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I yield. And thank you. Thank you for your service.
Mayor Pro Tem.
On a personal level, for those who may not know, my wife, Julie, grew up across the street from the Beal family. She's known Tony Beal since she was 6 years old. I met Tony Beal when our city hall was in an industrial complex over here off of Impressa. And I showed up at a city council meeting out there because I wanted to have a stop sign placed in my neighborhood because I live at a T intersection and I'm at ground zero of the T, if you will. And I was Target. And so as cars would come down the hill, they didn't stop. They would hang a left right in front of my house at high rates of speed. And I was very concerned about my house being hit. I have 3 children. And I showed up at the city council meeting at a time when Mr. Beal was not a city council member. And there was an opportunity, there was an empty seat, and there was a council selection process going on. And I actually got up and I spoke on Tony's behalf because of what my wife had told me about him. And since then, I've become very close to Tony. I knew his mom and dad. I attended their funerals. I know him as a man, as a husband, and as a father. And as Councilmember Gamble just said, it pains me to see personal attacks against people who clearly don't deserve it. One of the proudest moments I ever had as mayor, I was mayor in 2015, was working with this group of people, most of them, to turn the name of the street of El Portal into Richard Reese Way. And the reason that was done was because Richard Reese was the founding father, if you will, of this city. He's the designer, the architect of the city. I've said it before, you can't walk around that lake without walking through the mind of Richard Reese. So I was very proud to work with my brethren on the city council and work with the only business on that street was KinderCare. And they were really happy to change the name of the street. And then we had a big celebration with Richard, who's still with us, thank goodness. And there's a reason why I wanted to change the name, not just because Richard Reese is a wonderful human being, all 93 years of him. He's just a wonderful, wonderful man. But to change the name of that street reinforces our commitment as a council, as people who have lived here for so long. I've lived here since 1986. I was the guy turning the little basket with the ping pong balls in it so people could have an opportunity through a lottery to win a home. Not win a home, to purchase a home. I would have been working for the ping pong balls if it were to win a home. It's right over here, right across the street from where Santa Margarita High School is right now. Those homes that have the brown roofs. And since that moment in time, since I became a resident, and I was very impressed with Mr. Lumberg's comments, because he was kind of explaining how I found this community. And I thought, my gosh, this is like we're surrounded by wilderness, literally surrounded by wilderness. Let's keep it that way. We have this planned community. Let's keep it that way. We have one of the lowest crime rates, if not in the state, not just the state of California, but in the country. Let's keep it that way. Richard Reese, that was his plan. And I can't count the number of times that I've sat up here and I've heard Tony Beal say, on issues where we may disagree, and he'll say, every time I make a vote or issue a vote on some issue, I think, is this consistent with Richard Reese's plan for the community? I've heard him say that, and if I won't do it, but if I asked for a show of hands, some of you who have shown up for these meetings have heard it too. I've never seen or heard of Tony Beal engaging in any act of malfeasance. I've never heard him put his personal interests above those of the residents of this city. The only people he is beholden to are sitting in this room right now as representatives of the community of Rancho Santa Margarita. So I am, along with others, I'm sad, and I'm hurt. Because I know him. I know his wife. I know his sons. I know his daughters. I knew his parents. And he does not deserve this. So I would hope that you take that message. Social media can be just an evil thing. It's amazing how much courage people have behind a computer, a keyboard. They wouldn't dare say those sorts of things to someone's face. So I hope you take the message. I hope you go home and you tell your families and your friends how blessed we are to live in this community. Truly blessed. And I've said it before, with blessings come responsibilities. And I think we're all responsible to discuss this issue with those we know and to implore them to look at the facts. Tony read I haven't seen this signature sheet, but, trying to help his buddies out or something what does that even mean? I'm not even sure what that even means. But it's just an attack that's just unjustified, unnecessary, and below us. So with that, I would hope that you take that message with you. All five of us up here have lived here for a heck of a long time. No one's unfortunately new to this. It's what we've lived here 30 years.
24 years.
24 years. 30 years.
30 years. 31 years. And I beat them all. And
We're all younger.
Yes, I know you are all younger than me. Every one of you. Yes, you are. And we all just love this city. No one's getting rich, trust me, from sitting up here and dealing with this sort of thing. So, again, I hope you break that home. I know the people here in this room recognize how blessed they are to live in this community. You wouldn't be here otherwise. You wouldn't be here to talk about the Dove Canyon issue or any other issue that's presented before the City Council. You got plenty of things to do on a Wednesday night. And so let's all go recognize who we are and what we stand for. And thank you for letting me talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So my turn. What's interesting about people that run for public office is that we put ourselves out there, open to question, and that's the way our government works, and we're happy to do that. What all of us, I'm pretty sure, when we campaign, when we put a bullet list of the things that we are interested in doing or what we want to have happen, one of those bullet points is always we want more public input about anything that's on your minds to help us make decisions and all that. And typically, through the history of the city, there haven't been a lot of issues that the public felt the need to give us input on, but certainly if people wanted to, they did, and we received that input and put that together in our decision-making process. Lately here with Dove Canyon and a few other things, there's been a lot more public input than normal, which we're all very happy to get. We really do use public input as part of making our decisions, because we may live in different parts of the city, but we represent everybody. That's what's nice about not having districts. I'm not representing Dove Canyon because I live there. I'm not representing the houses that side of Plano too because I live in that. It's not the case. That's not what we do. We represent everybody. And what is heartwarming being a council member is when we are part of civil debate. I really warm to that. When people come up, and Mr. Lumber came up tonight and talked about, in very, no nonsense terms, here's my history, here's what I think, and here's what I will do if. Well, I completely respect that. It was civil, it was to the point. If it doesn't go the way I want it to go, I'm going to do what I can to get you out of the office. If it goes that way, I'm going to keep it. That's wonderful. That's the way this is supposed to happen. Where this all goes south, in my opinion, is when the debate, if you will, the discussion becomes uncivil, and you've unfortunately seen a little bit of that tonight, and that's not your problem, that's ours, and that will be taken care of. But, kind of back to one of the things that Carol was talking about, we're all friendly, but we're not friends by definition, if definition is we do things together on weekends and at night. No, that's not the case. That doesn't really mean anything, but I think it's testimony that we're not huddling together at night deciding how to scheme against the city or whatever. We're not doing that. Now, have there been many times that Councilmember Beal and I have disagreed? Many times. Many times he said, why did you vote that way? And other times, why he voted his way. But I will tell you this, he doesn't lie. He's painfully honest. And I respect process, as we all do. We have this talk all the time of, we have got lawyers all around here, and they live process, and that's what they do, and thank God that they do that. And it's easy to fall back on there's a process for everything. There's a process for removing one of us from office if you don't like what we're doing. And I respect that process as long as it's civil. And I think and I've read all the things on social media, and it's becoming a little uncivil, and it's too bad because it doesn't need to. If the facts are what is going to determine what happens here, then state those facts. I mean, that's really the only way which it happened, because at some point we all make up our minds, well, who do we believe, who don't we believe? There's so many things out there. But one thing that Tony isn't is he's not a liar. What he tells you, if he's going to tell you something, it's the truth. You may not like it. And how many conversations have occurred around the city about all of us up here? Why did Carol do what she did? Why did Holloway? I mean, of course, that's part of the process, and we respect that, and that's the way it should be, civil debate. And voters decide whether or not they like us, and they don't need to like us. Do they like the job we do? They don't like us. They don't know us personally. I've never walked into Albertsons and someone, oh, there's the mayor. No, it doesn't work that way here. People know us by name for the most part. And if you go to the summer concert series, you definitely know Brad because he's the most energetic guy in the room or on the stage. I mean, but I'm saying that respectfully because if you know us by face if you go to the summer concerts. Anyway, my point in all this is I hope the process as we move forward is respectable, because that's really the only way to get done. The amount of respect I have for the folks that are here from Dove Canyon, meeting after meeting after meeting, they don't necessarily come up and speak. They're making their presence known. The amount of emails I'm getting, I'm sure everyone's getting in reference to the Dove Canyon situation or the TCA or whatever, in volumes. It's volumes. But one thing about those, they're civil. Here's what we think. And a lot of them are cut and paste pieces, and that's fine. You're walking through the process. You're making your opinions known. And trust me, we will take that into consideration if those decisions are under our jurisdiction. So we're doing fine. The city's in great shape. And if it isn't, you guys would tell us. Please keep doing what you're doing as far as communicating. I just ask that the communication be civil. That's all. And we can get so much done that way compared to any other way. So that's my 2 cents. Anybody else have anything? Thank you all for being here. We're going to adjourn this meeting. And one last thing I wanted to say. I've been off this council and back on, and if I missed out on a pension, I'm upset because I didn't get one. I don't know what a pension is because I get one from another profession. We don't get pensions here. As a matter of fact, we get paid based on the population of the city. And I don't know if it's 2006 or before that is the last time I can remember voting ourselves a raise on population of the city. We don't get reports when someone moves in and go, there's a chance for a raise. What is our monthly? It's like
It's a little over $450.
We get $450 a month.
And it's been that way for years and years and years.
We get $450 a month, and I think we probably, if wanted to, we could come back and ask for more based on a population increase, but we have no interest in that. So $450 a month, no pension, 401k money, do what you want with it. With that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting to the next regular council meeting, which will be held on Wednesday, October 9th, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers. Meeting adjourned.